So in the last video, we did look at the basics of Chevreuse, how her kit works, artifacts, weapons, things like that. So in this video, we're not going to rehash any of that. Instead, we are going to specifically look at teams for Chevy, teams that can make use of her niche, quote unquote niche, playstyle, effects, passives, things like that. And to start this video off, we are going to take another look at the Raiden Hypercarry team that I use. Now, real quick, I did get engulfing for Raiden, and I'm still leveling that up. And then the sands that I had to give her is not as good as the attack sands that she had on the catch. So Raiden herself is going to be doing less damage. And I forgot to put Benny's artifacts back on him. So you're not going to see my Raiden crit as much. You're not going to see them do as much damage. This is much more to show how this team kind of works than to show Raiden, which I am reworking on now. Now, what Chevy allows us to do in the Raiden Hypercarry team is we can kind of replace Kazuha. Kazuha was the best fourth character for this team. We, of course, would want Raiden, C6 Sara, C5 or C6 Benny, and then that last slot would go to Kazuha, which was another 5-star. Chevy takes the place of Kazuha because Chevy gives an attack buff, healing, and most importantly, making the enemies weak to Electro and Pyro whenever an overloaded reaction is caused. So you can build a Raiden Hypercarry team with Raiden being the only 5-star in this team, and it makes it much more accessible because Kazuha is very useful in a lot of other teams, and if you want to use him in another team, and like the Abyss on one half or the other, you can slot Chevy into this Raiden Hypercarry team. And the damage that she is going to give is going to be almost 1-to-1 for Kazuha, especially at C6, especially getting those extra constellations on Chevy, which should be easier than Kazuha, but is not easier for me, apparently. You can very easily match the damage that you get from Kazuha in that slot, which is crazy that they were able to make or put in a character that allowed for something like this, especially a 4-star character. Now, the caveat is obviously that you can only do Electro and Pyro characters, but in a team like this, that doesn't matter. Now, this is my go-to Raiden Hypercarry team, and I do show this off in the first video, so now we are going to get into some other teams where we can use Chevy. And first and foremost, we're going to talk about a kind of different Raiden Hypercarry team. We're not necessarily being a Raiden Hypercarry team now, we are being a Raiden Overloaded team. And this is in case you don't have C6 Sara, because Hyper Raiden needs C6 Sara. Even with Raiden being C0, you can still Raiden Hypercarry with C6 Sara. Without C6 Sara, it's much, much harder. So instead, we're going to pretend like we don't have C6 Sara, and instead we're going to put in one of my favorite characters, Dehya. I have ran this team in the Abyss several times now, and this is a very, very good team because Raiden kind of batteries Dehya, because Dehya does have ER issues. Chevy and Benny also kind of help battery Dehya as well. We have healing, we have attack buffs, we have the shred to Electro and to Pyro, and what we're essentially doing is we're using Raiden almost more of in a support role, to where she is going to be making Dehya stronger. She is going to be using her skill to make Dehya's burst do more damage, and then we're going to use Raiden's burst to just add in damage as well as battery Dehya. So this takes it from having a Raiden Hypercarry team to now Raiden and Dehya are going to be doing our main damage dealers instead of just one of them. Dehya also works with Raiden's skill to where we are constantly going to be causing overloaded reactions through her burst, so the enemies are always going to be weak to Electro and Pyro for the entire duration of Dehya's burst. Dehya's skill also is going to work with Raiden's burst to keep that up as well. So this is actually a really good team. 56k a punch is actually not too bad. It's actually really good, especially for my Benny not having his full set, so there's no noblesse user in this. So it's actually like a really good team. I've enjoyed this team a lot. Raiden is still able to hit close to 200k whenever she crits. Now her crit rate's below 50%. I'm going to work on that. But it's still all in all a very, very good team because we get to battery all of our other characters, and we can essentially just do the Chevy and Bennett buffing Dehya, then Chevy and Bennett buffing Raiden, then Chevy and Bennett buffing Dehya, and we can just kind of do that whole rotation working in Raiden's skill and Dehya's skill, so that way the others can take use of the Overloaded as well. So this is a really, really good team. This is if you've got Raiden, you don't have C6 Sara, but you did get Dehya off of a 50-50 loss, or a 50-50 win, in my opinion, then this can be a very, very good option for Dehya. I am running Dehya, of course, on VG with her signature, but you might want to run Emblem in this instead of VG, just to have as much ER on D as possible, just to be able to have her rotation, just to be able to have her burst up constantly. Even with Raiden battering everybody, it still might be good to probably run Emblem in this instance. Now, one of my favorite teams to run Chevy in, and this is actually going to probably be one of my go-to teams at some point, Arlecchino, Fischl, Beidou, and Chevy. I love this team. Chevy is going to make Beidou, Fischl, and Arlecchino all do more damage. Fischl is going to be battering Beidou. Beidou is C6, so she's going to be giving a shield over to Arlecchino, and the more enemies that we have, the more damage Beidou is going to do. So this is a really, really fun team. This might be my favorite Arlecchino team, actually, although I might be making Arlecchino with C6 Candace. Me and Zucchini have been talking a lot about that in the Discord server. You should join it, by the way, if you're not part of it. There's a link down below. But we've been talking about C6 Candace with Arlecchino, and apparently it works out really, really well. So I might be running that instead, but this is still a really, really fun team that I love to use. Arlecchino using her skill on the multiple enemies, going to Fischl, dropping Oz, going to cause the overload reaction, so that way Chevy can come on, use her skill, use her burst, go to Beidou, use her skill, use her burst, go back to Arlecchino, absorb the Bond of Life, and then just kind of go crazy, right? The more enemies that there are, the more enemies that Beidou is going to be hitting, and the more damage that she is going to be doing. Fischl is going to be helping battery Beidou. It's a very, very synergetic team. Now, this Beidou did only have 201 ER because I had Serpent Spine on her. If I had just had a little bit more ER, she would have been easily able to use her burst every single rotation without fail. And this is a very, very fun team. I really, really like this team. And one of the things that I really like about this team, too, is that you can actually use it very well against Arlecchino's boss. During the last Abyss, I believe it was Chamber 3, had Arlecchino's boss in it. And I had to use a team similar to this, actually. Instead of using, I think it was instead of using Fischl, I actually used Raiden. And I used Arlecchino, Raiden, Beidou, and Chevy. And I was very easily able to 36-star that part of the Abyss with this team. I was able to break its shield because Geo shields are weak to overloader reactions. So we're going to cause a lot. We're going to be causing a lot of overloader reactions, especially with Raiden and Arlecchino together. So this is a really, really good fun team. I love kind of the synergy this team allows with Beidou hitting multiple enemies, Arlecchino focusing on the enemy right in front of her, Fischl hitting enemies. It's a very, very good team where you have a ton of damage spread around, but everybody can make use of dealing damage. You have a lot of damage kind of going around. And yes, Arlecchino is not going to be hitting as much as she would in like a Vaporized team, but Fischl and Beidou's damage more than make up for it. Beidou was also the very first 4-star that I pulled outside of course, like Noelle. So Beidou will always have like a spot in my heart where I'm trying to use her as much as I can because she was my first character that I ever pulled. So I never really tried to make a like Dehya-centered overloaded Chevy team. Like we made that one earlier with Raiden, but that was much more of a let's make a Raiden team without C6 Sara and then just bring somebody else on that can do damage during Raiden's downtime. This is much more of a I have Dehya and I want to use Dehya, and that's going to be Dehya, Fischl, Lisa, and Chevy. Fischl kind of battering Lisa. Lisa, we're going to have a Noblesse with Thrilling Tales, and we just got to make sure that in our rotation we are going to go from Lisa to Dehya, the character that we want to have on the field, getting the passive from Thrilling Tales, the attack buff from Thrilling Tales. We just want to make sure that we are going to probably do like Dehya skill, drop Oz, go into Chevy, use her skill, use her burst, Lisa burst, go back into Dehya, and then just, you know, pump her burst out, getting all those punches. Lisa's going to cause the defensive enemies to drop, and then we're going to have Thrilling Tales passive onto Dehya. So this was actually a really, really fun team. This would also be good if you are wanting to run a Dehya team with all 4 stars, then you can do that. This was actually a really, really fun team to use. Now, I do take Fischl out at one point and put Raiden in there just to see what that would do, kind of battering Lisa with Raiden. Also having Chevy help battery Dehya, and of course Raiden helping to battery Dehya. But Raiden can also make use of Lisa and Chevy as well. This would be, I think, another team if you don't have C6R, you might be able to bring Lisa in with Thrilling Tales and her burst in replacing C6 Sara to kind of run like a Raiden hypercarry team. I might actually have to try that. That might actually be good. But this was also a very, very fun team to do. And as you can see, Dehya's hitting like 56k a punch, which over the course of her entire burst is going to go up to like 560k. That's assuming that she does crit each one. I mean like 49 to 50k up into the 56k. But all in all, this can be a very, very good team for Dehya if you're wanting to run an on-field Dehya. Chevy allowed for that to work. Chevy's skill also produces a lot of energy, so you can use her to kind of battery Dehya, especially with the Magical Girl staff on Chevy, because then Chevy can still get her energy from that. So it actually works out really, really well. Chevy, now that I'm making this video, Chevy actually fills a really, really good role for Dehya. Now to kind of finish off this video, we're gonna kind of go through rapid fire some characters that may or may not like a team with Chevy. And to start that off, we're gonna look at Sethos. Sethos, I'm gonna say would not like it because Sethos' kit really is designed around doing aggravated reactions with Dendro, and that you can't do that with Chevy only needing Electro and Pyro characters. Kaching possibly could. I know that Zach, my mod, is going to try and build an overloaded Kaching team on one of our EU accounts that we use to help people, so we're going to see how that goes. Kuki probably can. Kuki would be much more of a support. You could do like a healing Kuki with tenacity on her to get an attack buff as well. She could make use of it. She's going to be able to pulse out, causing overloaded reactions on enemies that are afflicted by Pyro, keeping the resistance shred up, so she can also be good. Yanfei can also make use for it. My wife actually runs a Yanfei Chevy overloaded team. Xiangling can. Gaming, I'm not too sure about Gaming. Gaming really, really likes Vape. I feel like he could make some use out of it with some off-field Electro application. D-Luke most likely can. Amber most likely can. Toma, you probably want to run Toma in Virgin team, so not super good, but I don't think he would be the worst. I feel like he would be like a B or C tier character to try and run with Chevy, where he could slot into some teams to make it work, but he wouldn't like love it. Razor, you really want to try and do like a quick bloom or hyper bloom team with Razor, so probably not. Now Dory, the jack of all trades, I feel like she actually could maybe in that team with Dehya, because Dehya needs energy. Dory could easily fit in as an Electro character to kind of help feed energy to Dehya. So I feel like she could also heal, anything like that. So yeah, you could probably run like Dory in there with like Lisa and Chevy to make a Dehya team. Why not? I feel like that would be very, very interesting. Really help Dehya's energy recharge requirements. Klee definitely can. You could easily slot Klee into one of those Dehya teams, and Klee would be able to do it. Klee, it'd be like Klee, Fischl, Beidou, and Chevy. You could definitely do that team because Klee will work with Beidou, whereas Dehya will not work with Beidou. A character like Hu Tao, you really, really want Hu Tao in like a vaporized team, so I don't think that she could make really good use of Chevy. She also wouldn't like the healing that comes from Chevy because you typically want Hu Tao to be lower HP. A character like Yoimiya, I think Yoimiya could definitely make use of it. I think that you could easily do like a Yoimiya, Fischl, Beidou, Chevy team, and that could be a really, really good team. Beidou would love to probably work with Yoimiya because you're using her skill and you're using her normal attacks, meaning that it should work with how Beidou's burst works, which is why Dehya can't work with Beidou because her punches will not trigger Beidou's. A character like Sino, you really want to build Sino EM, so again, Sino, you don't want to. You would really want him in a quick and aggravator quick bloom team. Lenny definitely can. One of the coolest teams that I've ever seen was a Lenny Chevy overloaded team in an Abyss review that I did, where it was Lenny, I think it was Lenny, Raiden, Chevy, and then Yanfei, Shield Fei, I believe is what it was. And it was such a really cool team to see. Now, I know that I didn't click on every single Electro character or Pyro character, but if you have a character that wants to be an on-field damage dealer, then you can use them with Chevy as long as their kit does not scale with EM like Sethos or Sino, for example. So that is going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, do be sure to leave it down in the comments. Myself or someone else will sure to answer it, and I'll see you in the next one.